Hello and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Sage Intacct 2021 Release 2 preview. As you all know, my name is Mark Adams, and I will be your host for today's presentation. For today's agenda, we will cover learning opportunities for Intacct. We will briefly review the Sage Intacct preview schedule for 2021. Then we will cover the highlights in Release 2. Following that, we will present some tips and tricks and close with a question and answer session. Learning opportunities for Sage Intacct have never been easier. Included with your software subscription is access to the Sage Intacct Learning Center. In the Learning Center, you will find training videos, helpful how-to documents, and a chance to collaborate with other Sage Intacct users. We strongly urge you to register for and actively use the Sage Intacct Learning Center. As a courtesy to our customers, OneVision holds a sneak peek webinar each quarter for the purpose of providing an overview of the new features. Finally, you can contact us with any questions or issues by emailing support@onevisionllc.com. Sage Intacct releases updates to its product 4 times per year, once per quarter. The release dates for 2021 are February 19th for Release 1, May 21st for Release 2, August 20th for Release 3, and November 12th for Release 4. OneVision will hold a quarterly webinar approximately 2 to 3 days before the release. The highlights for Release 2 are divided into 3 categories. Best-in-class financials, which include bank reconciliation enhancements, streamlined close process, improved GL approvals, and enhanced multi-tax solutions. Deep cross-industry functionality includes contracts flexibility, inventory, order entry and purchasing, streamlined project invoicing, and more construction for early adopters. Best-in-class cloud platform includes improved budget versus actuals insight, expanded custom reporting flexibility, and training updates to get the most out of Intacct. With Release 2, there have been several enhancements to the bank reconciliation process. Expanded bank transaction matching rules and rule sets have been introduced as a more robust way to match incoming transactions. For example, a matching rule can be created to ignore leading zeros on incoming checks and match by amount and doc number. The ability to view and act on all bank feed transactions for an account has been enhanced. You can now go to the Banking Cloud tab for any account connected to bank feeds to view all the downloaded transactions, or from the account list, you can click the Bank Transactions link. You can also create additional transactions from the account record. Enhancements has also been made to the re-reconciling process when opening multiple reconciliations. The close process has been streamlined by expanding checklist capabilities. You can now import and export checklists and assignments, as well as having the ability to add dependencies to assignments. Finally, you can control who can update checklists and assignments with enhanced default options, and checklist reports and dashboards can be created for greater visibility. The general ledger approval process has been updated in Release 2. GL outlier detection has been extended to all allocation transaction lines. You can view the name of the pending approver when a journal entry is submitted for approval. If the submission for approval contains an attachment, you can view and access the attachment directly on the approvals list. Multi-tax solutions are now supported for multinational customers. Each Intacct entity can be configured to use different tax setups, and pre-built tax setups are provided. Custom tax configurations are also supported. Expanded billing flexibility for contracts is included in Release 2. Unique bill-to contacts can now be specified at the contract line level. Also, billing price lists can now be imported using a CSV file. Finally, there is now expanded support for clearing the last active MEA allocation, resetting the applicable revenue schedules to the previous amounts that existed prior to the allocation. There are inventory, order entry, and purchasing enhancements related to inventory items in the sales and purchasing processes. There have been over 40 fields added to the item record, grouped into the following sections: item details, which contain general item information; measures, which capture the physical characteristics of items; and commercial, which are used for e-commerce information. Previously, when items tracked by serial, lot, or bin number were entered in order entry, serial, lot, or bin numbers were gleaned from reports, then entered into sales transactions, a clumsy manual process. With Release 2, serial, lot, or bin numbers are automatically looked up and available from drop-down lists. Also, there are now expanded rules for handling negative inventory. For early adopters, three-way matching for purchasing has been introduced. Three-way matching is a process of matching the quantities and prices on the vendor invoice, the purchase order, and the receipt to validate the details of a purchase before creating the AP bill. Project invoicing has been streamlined in Release 2. It is now possible to flag a credit card charge as billable and assign it to a project or customer. These billable credit card charges can be included when generating project invoices. Additionally, project manager privileges have been enhanced to allow for the editing and deleting of draft invoices. For early adopters, enhancements have been made in Release 2 to the change request process for construction. With change requests, you can now review impacts on the project estimate and see the effects on project profitability and have the ability to communicate these changes. With change requests on order entry documents, you now have visibility into the original as well as draft and posted changes, showing the effects of the change request. There are new options available for the Dimension Balance standard report to enable a trial balance style view, a budget summary view, or a comparison of budget versus actual view. Reporting on alternate books has also been added to the Dimension Balance standard report. Greater custom reporting flexibility has been added in Release 2. Custom reporting areas have been added for the interactive custom report writer, in which SQL statements are utilized to join two or more existing reporting areas from the new Custom tab, while fiscal attributes and measures have been added to both the interactive custom report writer and interactive Visual Explorer. For custom reports built using the custom report writer, you can now show the filters when the report is run. Also for custom reports, selecting report type has been removed, and report options can be selected directly to either view the reports in HTML, print to PDF, or export to other formats. There have been enhancements made to the Learning Center for easier access for users. The Learning Center can now be launched from the Intacct homepage. Intacct is now introducing a free fundamentals training course on demand, which allows users to learn at their own pace. Either live or virtual offerings are also available, and there are short video tutorials, on-demand courses, and instructor-led training available through the Learning Center. This concludes the highlights portion of our presentation. As you can see, there are many other enhancements and new features included with the latest release. To learn more about all the new features and enhancements in the Sage Intacct 2021 Release 2, visit the release notes link from the homepage of your Sage Intacct application. For today's tips and tricks, I will go into our training environment and demonstrate first how advanced tax functionality is configured, and I will follow up by a quick lesson on how to build a custom customer aging report using the custom report writer. So with that, let me jump into our training environment and let's get started. Let's have a look at advanced tax. Advanced tax is usually used when the simple tax is too simple and Avalara tax is too much. And so for medium-sized companies that don't have a huge tax issue, advanced tax is probably the way to go. So let me show you how the configurations to advanced tax work. First of all, we want to make sure we have item tax groups set up. So we can go to item tax groups here from setup, from order entry. And you'll notice that we have 4 of them already set up here. One for taxable products, there are some for in-state travel, some others. So we can segregate how items are to be taxed or not taxed, as the case may be. Secondly, we want to make sure we have contact tax groups set up. And this would be under company settings, contact tax groups. And you'll notice here we have one set up for Massachusetts sales tax. If we drill into these, you'll see that it's nothing more than a name. So these are used to track. Now, when we set up a customer, let me just show you how the customer is determined to be taxable. If we look at the customer that we're going to use today in the demo, 10458. And we have a look at this guy. The advanced tax looks at the ship to contact to determine if the customer is taxable or not. Now, as you can see here, the ship to contact is the same as the customer. So we know that since it's the same as the customer, it's going to be using the customer's configuration. So if we go to the additional information, we can see that they have a tax group set up, the MA sales tax. Now, if a customer has a different ship to contact from the customer, that contact ship to would have to be updated with the tax group in order to be deemed taxable. Likewise, if we look at an item, determine its taxability. We're going to look at item 160 here. And you can see that it has an item tax group of taxable products. So without going any further, it's been determined that this item 160 and our customer 10458 are both taxable. All right. So now let's look a bit further into how the configuration works. There's about 4 different pieces here that we need to be aware of. The first one is the tax authority, because ultimately we have to submit the taxes to a vendor. So our tax authority here is set up, as you can see, MADOR, Massachusetts Department of Revenue, and we assign the vendor to it. That's all the tax authority is for, is to assign the vendor, as you can see there. All right. Next, we're going to look at tax details. Now, a tax detail is every single little piece that is a taxable jurisdiction. For example, this is set up as a Massachusetts sales tax. We're taxing the full amount at 6.25%, and it's going to hit this GL account. If we had a city in Massachusetts, we would set up a separate tax detail for them and have their percent and the GL account and the tax authority and what have you. I'll show you how those would be joined later, in this demo. But in the detail, we simply tell it the percent, what's going to be taxed. Is it the full amount, or is it going to be an amount within a range? Is there a minimum or a maximum tax? The GL account. The tax authority, remember that we just set up, and active or not active, that's a tax detail. So there would be one detail record for each taxing jurisdiction. All right. From there, the next step is the schedules. So we're going to make out a schedule. You'll notice we have one already for Massachusetts sales tax. If we look at it, we'll notice there's two tabs here, the schedule information and the details. So our schedule ID is for Massachusetts sales tax. Now hypothetically, Massachusetts sales tax could have more than one detail. It could have a state tax, it could have a county tax, it could have a city tax. And in the details section is where these will all come together. Since we only have one set up, Massachusetts sales tax, this is where we put it. But if we had, like I said, 3 different details, we would simply put them all here. So those are our tax schedule. A tax schedule is a group of details. All right, finally, the last thing in our configuration is a schedule map. Now, in a schedule map, we're bringing everything together that we've just done. So since we're in order entry, we tell it what transaction definition we're going to be using. So we're going to add this to the sales invoice. The item tax group is taxable products. The contact tax group is our MA sales tax. And our tax schedule that it's going to be using is the one we just looked at, the Massachusetts sales tax. Okay, so this brings everything together. Now, when we look at the transaction definitions, there's one thing we have to do in here to enable it. So it's a sales invoice, so we need to look at our sales invoice right here. And in our sales invoice, in fact, in all the transaction definitions, there's something called transaction subtotals. And we would enable the subtotals, and we would set it up to be able to calculate the tax. So the description is simply tax. We tell it if it's a charge or a discount. This is a charge. Applies to line 0. That simply means that it applies to all the lines or the document in total. The value type is set at percent. We tell it a GL account and tell it whether it's a credit or a debit. And then we have the option to give it a GL offset account. And finally, we mark that it's tax. Okay, once that's done, that means that our configuration is complete. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to put one together and watch to see if it calculates the tax. So we know that our sales invoice is set up for taxing. Let's just add one. So we know our customer 10458 is taxable, so let's use him. We either can use a project or we don't have to use a project. It doesn't matter. You would set your due date, payment terms, all that stuff. Since this is a multi-entity or multi-currency database, I have to tell it what the base currency is. Most of you won't have to do that. In the entries section, we're going to use our item ID that we know is taxable, 160. And we're just going to put something in here. So out of a, let's see if there's any details we need. We got to put a location in. The rest of the stuff is not required. So now you'll notice we have here a subtotal section with some tax. Now we're going to go ahead and calculate it. And if I've done everything right, we should have tax calculating. And it is. There's our 6.25 Massachusetts sales tax for 6250. And so we know our configuration works, and that's pretty much how advanced tax is configured and how it works. Like I said, it's more robust than the simple tax, not as robust as Avalara tax, which is used for those heavy taxation issues. All right. So that's the advanced tax. Now I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to show you how to build a custom aging report. Now you know we have a standard aging report, but sometimes customers want more out of an aging report. Maybe they want it by project or something like that. And so I'm just going to show you how to build a quick and dirty report with the custom report writer. Now the custom report writer, as you know, is not really a report writer at all. It's a wizard. And so you go through several steps to build our report. First of all, what we're going to do is we need to select our primary data source. And so we know, since we're going to be building a customer aging, there's actually a object out here for that. Customer aging report, it's called. Right here it is. So we're going to select that, and it'll tell you aging periods and detail and header information for customer invoice aging. So each object that you select here, it will tell you what kind of data to expect from it. All right, we click next. And now we are going to select the fields that we want on our report. So we probably want a 0 to 30 column, or 31 to 60, 61 to 90, 91 to 120, and probably our over 121. So those will be our columns. If we expand here, we can pull things from the aging line detail, and we also can pull things from the header. So let's just see what we have available. From the header, we can pick our customer. Okay. I think that's about all we have here. We need the doc number, posting date. Here's the doc number. I don't see a posting date yet. Right here it is. And the only thing I see that we don't have is the project. I'd really like to have the project here. So I'm going to come up here to our line detail, and I'm going to add our project ID. All right, I think that's all I want for now. So let's go on. All right, we're going to want a calculated column. We're going to want some totals that all of our aging buckets add up to, so we know what the total aging amount is. So in the formula editor, you notice it's very straightforward. You can only do mathematical calculations on numbering fields. So we're simply going to add these together to come up with our total. 360, 61 to 90, 91 to 120, and 121 to whatever. And we're going to call it the total. We're going to save that, and now that becomes its own column. All right, we go to next. And now we can select our column sequence. So we probably want the customer first. And right now I can see that I've forgotten something. So the beauty of a wizard is we can go back and add some columns. I forgot the doc number. So I'm just going to add it. And we're going to go on again. It's the beauty of a wizard. You can go back and forth until you get everything you need. So we want the customer ID. We probably want the customer name next. Probably the document number after that. Its posting date. And probably want our aging buckets next. We probably want a slide project up here somewhere. Yeah. All right. So that looks good. It's starting to take shape. All right. So we go to next. And now this, it's going to have a sum. If we want it to have a report total at the bottom for each of the columns, this is where it's done. So we're going to sum all of these. And we're also going to sum our calculated column total that we added. So we're going to sum that. Go to next. And now we're going to sort the columns. How do you want the columns sorted? Well, we want it sorted by customer ID first in ascending order. And we possibly want the posting date after that. All right, just to start. Now, the rest of these, where it says none, it's not going to have any effect. It's only going to look at columns that have either ascending or descending and the order in which they're placed up here. So we've got our two columns that we want to do some sorting. So we go to next. And we show the filters. No need for any filters, I don't think. Now, there is need for grouping. So let's group this by the customer. All right, so there won't be here. So the customer is going to live down here. Customer aging header, I think, is where we took him from. And so we're going to group by customer. We could also group by document number if we so choose. Let's do that. So we're going to have two groups, the customer and the document number. All right, so let's go on. This just tells us how we want to order the groups. We want to order first by customer ID ascending and then by doc number ascending. We could switch them up if we wanted. All right, next, set the default date. So we can put as of date today if we want. We're going to look at a geo posting date since we didn't bring any of these other dates in. We want it, since this is a multi-currency database, we have to specify the reporting currency. And then we can tell it to either show the details or not show the details. And we're going to show the details. And we're going to call this our customer aging report. All right, and we go to next. And we're not going to be doing anything with any kind of graphing, so we're going to skip this part. Additional prompts, no, not for this exercise. We might want to put one on for customer ID at the end. We're going to call this customer aging report. And since I spelled terribly, it told me that. All right, so now we're done. We're done. We could save it if we wanted to, but I'm just going to run the report to show you what it looks like. So it took us what, all of about 10 minutes to put this report together. And we can put an as of date in here. Now this company's quite old, so I'm going to put an as of date, say of May 31st, but not of 2021. I'm going to take it a couple years back. And 19, make sure we have some data. Okay, show details, yes. And now let's view it. All right, blow it up for you here. Okay, so it's going to do it how custom reports do. It's going to show our subtotal name, which is simply our sum for customer 10001 and document 1021. So you can see that for this document, it's going to list all the detail lines, because see, now what we can do is we can apply payment by line rather than just by document. So this is going to break it out by line, which is what we like. So we can see that in total, this document is for $7,000, $1,400 a line. For this customer, for this document, you'll see it's $1922.50. It shows each line. So you can see that probably in 10 minutes, I was able to make a quick and dirty aging report. So the case being here, I wanted to demonstrate that any ad hoc report requirements that come up for a report that you might need in a hurry, Custom Report Writer can get this for you. And this might be a report that is going to be used one time, and that's it. So that's the Custom Report Writer and a quick, dirty little customer aging report. So now we're going to switch to the section for some questions and answers. And so let me go to the first question. All right. I would like to make updates to some company contacts using the import function. However, I cannot locate the contacts template. That's because currently there is no functionality to create or update company contacts via import. This is something that if you really are strongly wanting, I strongly encourage you to go put in an idea in through the Help Center. People would vote on that, and if enough people vote on that, it will actually get incorporated into the product. All right, next question. We are importing timesheets into Intacct, but each line creates a separate timesheet. How can we troubleshoot this? Okay, in your import file, first make sure that your header portion is listed only once. Also, you want to make sure that each line has an entry date that falls within the time frame of the timesheet. So either one of those two things might cause the import to create separate timesheets. Okay, next question. I am trying to save a journal entry that contains a credit to cash with offsets to many different expense accounts and departments. But I get an error that states that the dimension values for departments do not balance. What causes this? Okay, in the general ledger configuration, you're going to want to check to see if department balancing is enabled, because if it is enabled, then the journal entry must balance by department. So if you don't want department balancing, you'll want to disable that checkbox. Next. Okay, I have a question about automatic bank feeds. Shouldn't Intacct automatically clear checks that it is able to match? During the bank feed download process, Intacct will match the bank transactions with any of the Intacct transactions that it can. Once matched, now a user must complete the reconciliation, which then sets the matched transactions to cleared. So the answer there is it still needs human intervention. Okay. How can I find instruction on how to write smart rules and smart events? For this one, I would strongly recommend a course in the Learning Center called Customizing and Tailoring Sage Intacct. In this course, you'll learn how to customize Sage Intacct using the customization and platform services tools. Very good course. All right, next, okay. How can I make project a required field on a purchase order? You can create a smart rule. We were just talking about smart rules. Or you can create a smart rule on the purchase order detail object to require the project dimension. And you know, smart rules are very good for that purpose, to make fields required. All right, here we go. Can I create custom invoice referencing for AR invoices for each entity? Yes, you can. To do so, you'll first go to the company, setup, document numbering, and you'll do this from the top level. You're going to create a separate invoice numbering sequence scheme for each entity, giving each a unique name. So if you have 4 entities, you should end up with 4 sequencing things. Then you would go to each entity where you would go into AR, setup, configuration, and go to the document sequencing section. You can set the invoice sequence there by choosing the appropriate sequence that we created in the top level. So yes, we can. Is it possible to prevent duplicate reference numbers on journal entries? On this one, unfortunately not, because the reference number field is an open text field. And so there's no way to prevent duplicate reference numbers on there, even with a smart rule. Next question. I would like to import AR advances, but I cannot find the import template. Unfortunately, again, advances can't be imported, only the AR invoices and adjustments at this time. But like the other one that we talked about, if this is important to you, go ahead and submit an idea out on in the community. And if it gets enough votes, it will be placed into the product in a future release. Okay, our final question. I'm trying to update the phone number in the company tab, but it appears that it is read-only. How can I update this field? Well, the phone number is associated with the user selected as the admin contact. So you'll need to update the contact record for this admin user, and you can update the phone number from there. Okay, all right. That takes us to the end of our presentation. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the afternoon and a great weekend. So long, everyone.